Morning, Cumberland, Town Council report, Wednesday, March. That's Wednesday. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That name. All right. Now, Clerk Treasurer, will you call the roll, please?
Council President Rector Heidi,
Here.
Council Vice President Mike Wolski,
Here.
Council Member Joe Seeker,
Here.
Council Member Ed Loud,
Here.
Council Member Anna Peak. Here.
Okay, roll call, consideration of the, oh no, I should get the right, should write that. Okay, roll calls, the consent agenda, claims register, council member minutes from, February 4th, 2025 annual report. Thank you, Erica, for doing that. I didn't see any big surprises there.
It was surprisingly,
It balanced nice.
it did, yes, in compared to last year.
And it looked like we brought in about 500,000 more than we actually spent when I looked at the time we have to put on the other.
We did.
That I actually agree with this, Joe.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And January 7th, I'm not shocked, right? The January 7th, 2026 sanitary board minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review all those documents? Anybody have any questions to discuss? No? Negative? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second. I have a motion and a second, any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Board and commissioner appointments, again, I was talking to Caitlin beforehand. I know you've got some introductions on some ordinances this evening and probably, next time that'll have a big impact on what we do on those. Do you have anything that's open on your board you want to look at, or we good to move on past that?
You could move on past that, that's what you guys were wanting to do.
Yeah, I think it would be more prudent probably next week, I would say.
Okay.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. I did read to you,
Yeah.
Okay.
Citizen comments. Staff reports, chief.
Not much to relay. I mean, we attended the funeral last week for the Beach Grove officer, and we had actually several officers from our agency show up and be part of that, so it was nice to be able to do that. We've got all of our shifts fully functioning, so it's nice to have that, and got those cars. The new ones are outfitted and slowly getting them rolled out. They've got some radios they have to replace from the old cars to the news, and then we'll get those to Enterprise and get those out. Yep.
So we got our helmet yet for the,
We're still waiting on Axon to come in and get that set up.
oddly enough.
You will be the first one.
Well, I already, you know what, it won't be a first for me, I had in service. Not last Saturday before, and IMPD bought 7 or 8 of them, so I actually got to use it at in service.
Oh, good.
Those darn dogs are pretty quick, I was shooting as quick as I could, they kept coming by. It was bad.
But you didn't feel a thing, though, did
I
you?
didn't feel it.
That's too bad.
I didn't feel it. But yeah, I actually got to use it in service here.
Good. I guess.
Well, it's big, it's got a helmet, everything goes with it, I mean, dirt.
Let me remind it of all the trouble he gave us just to even get it approved. So
I told them that too, and they'll laugh, they thought it was pretty fun, all the trainers out there.
I'll remind Mark, let him know too.
All right, train master. All right. Mr. Lips.
I'm gonna actually focus on giving some legislative information now that the short session is closed. I have a longer report that I'll send out. I'm gonna scroll through some things and hit it. And I'm gonna try to make the report less in bit language and more regular language. Some of these are just more points of interest, like Senate Bill 3 introduced a constitutional amendment question for the next ballot to change how bail can be withheld. Currently, you can only do that on murder and treason. This would potentially give, if people voted it in, more options for that. If they can deem that person as a threat. I talked about in the sanitary meeting, Senate Bill 6 requires additional notice to go out for condemnation of sewer line extensions to more parties, advertised in more places, and go to the county planning commission so that the county getting notice. Senate Bill 14 changed several PERF issues and 77 fund issues and TRF issues. A lot of it's geared towards state pension things, but there are things that will affect staff here. But those are more de minimis than what was originally in there. So it's I would say it's fairly neutral, and there's positives, not really many negatives to that. The Stadium Authority bill passed out of Senate, bring the Bears to Indiana, Senate Bill 27. Senate Bill 59 is the annexation outreach meetings bill. That shouldn't really affect how we've done annexes, but if we were to do a municipally led annexation, we'd have to notify the county authorities, planning commission, where the annexation is, township executive, and public outreach meeting with the other tax units that annexation falls in. It refers to pretty much any annexation outside of a super voluntary. So, which we've not done anything other than super voluntaries in a very long time. Senate Bill 76 is the immigration bill. It changes a lot of things that ties the AG's office to locals in different ways. If you're cooperating with immigration laws, this is the AG's office can come in and defend government staff and officials. It also says, though, that if local officials, local government, local employees are not following immigration laws, that the AG office can also come alongside those cases and go after local government and those entities. But it also has some requirements, like on our police department or the town, if they want us to hold immigration detainees, we have to do that as well.
Yes, your room of it.
I don't know what drove Senate Bill 90. It's not related to anything we do here, but it's consent for pelvic, prostate, and rectal exams that has to be gathered.
Any great questions for this?
There's a
It's all right.
syringe exchange site bill, Senate Bill 91. That is with the goal of syringe and needle site of healthcare being extended. Senate Bill 112 PNC documents, if you guys were to file a withdrawal and it has an address, they take that now and they will change your address automatically for your voter registration if it doesn't match your existing home address, what's on your withdrawal. There's a election bill that's 113, but it's more for the election boards. Senate Bill 119 is for grooming and expands a lot of the definitions of sexual grooming and places where sex offenders are prohibited from or expanded within that. Children under the age of 18, if it's geared for facilities like for kids under 18, events, entertainment, those type of facilities, there's no new prohibitions for sex offenders in there. The legislature passed a bill, Senate Bill 140 for public safety and threats that specifically goes after doxing and protects the legislature from people doxing them and threatening them, coming after them on social media. There's new tobacco, e-liquid, and vapes prohibitions that make further from a school, but in one of the bills for it, I think they unintentionally maybe set a zoning standard that could change some things in mixed use developments because it prohibits any tobacco, vape, or nicotine e-liquid sales in any building that has residential use. So there have been numerous mixed use buildings throughout the state that have in one of their storefronts in the building, either a cigar shop or some kind of big shop, things like that. And the way everybody kind of dissected the bill, that might be allowed in that legislation. I don't think that was an intended consequence, but it is in there. Um, They have touched some of the income tax things, but they mostly just extended the implementation date to 2029 or 2028 for the municipal income tax and push that date back, but in House Bill 1240, they created a municipal task force. I copied Erica and Rebecca an email. I think yesterday or Monday. It creates an options for the cities and towns to form a task force for lit with the county to look at using a countywide lit system still. To say, this is the lit rate that would be needed for everyone in the county. If the county were going to collect it like under the cadget system that we currently have to cover everyone. And it's an exercise that has to be done this year. The report has to be submitted in the fall to basically the legislature. And they have mixed anticipations of what will happen from that, but I
Have
think
you
that.
guys responses back from any other, towns?
Yeah, I've spoken with, Portville, New Powell, Greenfield, and McCordsville, and they're all participating, so I was on the phone with, Mayor Titus earlier today and their, municipal advisor, going through some of it, so. All of them are in, if not heard from the county, surely will consider spring, so. I can do some additional follow-up, but, if everyone agrees, that's great, because then the legislature may agree to give a rate that covers everyone. If everyone doesn't agree, then it gives us opportunity to say why we need better tools for city and town finance, because we're not set up well with the current legislation that's passed.
Now, who from county government who joins if they wanted to, or is this only town?
The county has to be a part of it, the way it's set up, it's, the minimum requirement is the financial. Officer, the member of the county council from each group, so. The minimum requirement is the county council member and clerk treasurers. So, the recommendation is to try to get. Council commissioners, clerk treasurers, municipal advisors, town managers, and everybody in one room, so it's a more holistic. And try to actually hammer that out, so I sent it to. The mayors and council presidents and town managers were the clerk treasurers. For all the communities within Utah County, and I'm talking with. Aim a little bit. And some of the cities in Marion County to try to figure out what that looks like and if it's even relevant in Marion County, because it'll be a review-to-go situation.
Right.
What's possible for us in that county may not be the same as what's possible in Utah County. Senate Bill 176 shooting ranges. Another fun little surprise zoning bill. Because in that bill, it says that if there's existing commercial, industrial, or agriculture. Zoning, a shooting range or sporting goods store can go straight to permitting without going through any other process.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, anywhere that's commercial, industrial, or agricultural. Commercial, industrial, or agricultural. So it's a pretty bad bill. Because literally any farm field that could just put a sporting goods store in, because. And it can be right next to a subdivision.
Do we know what the thought behind that was?
I haven't really looked into the origin of that one yet. I'm sure there's a story and looked into the authors a whole lot of it.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, they may have had a slice of it, I don't know. There's normally some local fight that's happened somewhere.
Why?
I mean,
Or what's that?
you never do. There's an NDOT bill that changes, some of the grant funding. It also says that local units. Are more involved in the local road to bridge matching grant fund and the distribution of the fund based off the local unit's share of total lane mileage is kind of affected in that. There is a healthcare bill that is Senate Bill 180, various healthcare matters, but a section of that bill, like a lot of it's around employee compensation, like workers' compensation. There's a section that's tied to first responders within that. It says that current and former police officer or firefighter may recover medical benefits from the first responder's employer for an employment-related injury or illness without first proceeding with a workers' compensation claim. Provides that if a first responder pursues a workers' compensation claim for medical benefits and the claim is withdrawn or denied, the first responder is not precluded from recovering medical benefits from the employer. So that one does have that language buried in there. Would affect us in those type of cases.
Even if their health insurance, like their health insurance,
If it's a work-related.
Yeah, you would
injury,
health insurance.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, just come up, yep.
There's some workforce development bills that will change some of the way we approach like seasonal workers, part-time workers and things like that. Small changes around that. There's a DNR bill that changes some of the conservancy districts and reporting and things. There was the other IURC bill that could affect us that says that if there is a workforce affordable housing project that meets certain provisions, then we are not allowed to charge them our plant fees or our tap fees to the developer or the builder at all, if they meet these certain requirements. So
What house was that one?
that is that's Senate Bill 241. There was another bill that could affect us, and part of it does affect us, that we'll have to do the zoning overlay because we're within 5 miles of the airport. It also affects some people's code enforcement, but we don't have current provisions for code enforcement that would be affected. It says we cannot differentiate vehicles in the neighborhood by fuel type. Because some communities have ordinances that prohibit vehicles like on street or things for like diesel or racing fuel or farm diesel vehicles. But none of our ordinances separate by fuel type, so that's not in there. We will have to do an airport, zoning overlay. Christie and Nikki are working on a plan on that, because the county already has some things they should be easier than some. There's a lot of language trying to move towards promoting nuclear facility permits. They realign a lot of the criminal mischief, cemetery mischief, all those into one criminal vandalism, but all of the related penalties are still the same. Senate Bill 270 is the township merger bill that sets certain guidelines for what townships will have to start talking and evaluating mergers. None of the townships we're in are affected by that. Marion County is excluded from the language. Right now, they can provide fire service. That's kind of precluded. I do know that every township in Hancock County is talking and exploring township mergers. Currently, like I started that with the House bill and the Senate bill that we're both running through this to start this conversations. So we likely start to see multiple or one large merger happen within Hancock County, because a lot of the other townships within Hancock County would fall within that threshold that could be eliminated or forced into mergers in the county or the townships. There seems to be a preference from the townships in Hancock County to merge with other townships rather than with the county. So just part of some of the government modernization things. Law enforcement, civilian oversight boards, outside of metro boards, so a bill saying that we can only operate in an advisory capacity. We don't have a civilian oversight board outside of the metro board, so it doesn't affect us unless you guys willing to form them. Now, House Bill 1001, we talked a ton about, final version of the bill, still not great policy by any means, but all the zoning concerns pretty much were removed from that bill. It's mostly turned into an unfunded mandate, reporting bill. Plus, historically, we're not supposed to track, we do track and report, to the legislature and the House of the State Housing Authority, an annual report, and then they did change a little bit with impact fees, but that language also got better. Originally, there was a 1 mile impact. So the buffer they put down that, I think we had 5 miles. But they did also restrict our permit fees, building fees to only be able to be moved every 5 years. It's tied to inflation, but specifically the CPI. I don't know if we talked much about this in the past, but there is kind of a standard we use for budgeting and stuff. It's the municipal cost index that's put together by the finance officials and a couple other like national entities, because municipal cost does not tend to follow CPI, tends to be higher. Inflationary effect different by the nature of the work we do and how we're forced to do it. I don't like that language because I think at some point it more or less will force some cost sharing and burden from developers and builders and the taxpayers. Which is part of my argument, but all that being said, the bill was much worse at the beginning of session. It also forms a summer committee for, there was that language that said affordable housing could happen on land owned by religious organizations, by right. We're sending that to summer study committee. The electric affordability bill passed. It's a long one, and we don't have electric utility. We won't talk about it. There's a lot of public safety and child bills that will probably come through. Things that the change will, at least we'll have to change a little bit of the way they do business. I'm sure they'll be getting full updates soon, and software that they're all going to have to read, take tests, and sign off that they completed their training on. So it's going to be a fun season for them. There's cryptocurrency bills regulating it, and also like bills saying that as part of the first bill, they have to add investment options for cryptocurrency to people within the state retirement funds. The municipal election bill did pass, this House Bill 1055. So you guys are less than 10,000 at this time, so you don't fall in the opt-out or that even number of years election.
What's that gonna mean that I should think? I know our terms are up on 2027.
Yeah, I don't have an answer on that yet. But I don't know that that was considered or talked about at all, as I can see. I know the bill was.
Yeah, but there was 1 year term that moved it right, we did, right?
Yeah. I know that it's been asked, but I never heard it answered in writing.
Yeah. I mean, they thought elections were expensive before, for a 1 year term, just to go over again, right? But they've outdone themselves.
We're gonna have to make sure we get that figured out, because.
Yeah.
Hate for our elections to be illegal.
Yeah, there's another annexation bill. We don't have railroad in town, but it's still a step in the right direction for annexation. It says that properties divided by railroad tracks satisfies contiguity requirements. So we don't have a railroad, but it's rare in a lot of recent years that you've seen things move in any way positive towards enabling annexation. That House Bill 1058 does that. It's a good thing. There's 2 HOA bills. We talked a little bit about one of them. One of them kind of prohibits an HOA from raising their budget without quorum. Understand the intent behind that. A lot of the communities worry about unintended consequences if you can't get a quorum and have a lot of private infrastructure. not being able to maintain that over time. The language had changed a little bit to allow for assessments from the board, the community can run assessments later, but the large concern is that over time it will potentially transfer private infrastructure over to public problem. So that's what a lot of us discussed from cities and towns as that does come true. There's a concern. You see that in a lot of older neighborhoods now, like a lot of drainage bonds are the communities are having to step in and take over them as HOA doesn't exist anymore, never existed. Or, just isn't able to overcome it because of budget core issues and things like that. So we think that could start happening with private roads and other infrastructure beyond drainage and things, or other going forward. The other HOA bill, one of the things that it does is say that only law enforcement can add license plate readers to neighborhoods. HOAs cannot install them. They have to work with local law enforcement to do that. And they also can't have access to the data themselves. I think there's a little bit of unintended consequence in that too, because I think they intended that to be more specific around block and like database stuff, but there are other companies that do license plate readers that aren't tied to databases that HOAs have purchased that just track licenses coming in a neighborhood, and they don't have a subscription cost like block and all this, and if there's a crime, they hand that data over to the police, and the police are able to look and say, these people are here that are never here during the time frame of this incident. I don't really think that's a bad thing personally. I could walk through anybody's neighborhood, take a photo of every license plate in the neighborhood and not broke.
That would be your fine, right?
It's not single law, so I don't think that's necessarily great language. I don't think that.
Yeah, I have a question, on the HOAs, about the form part, does that affect only mandatory HOAs or, there's several in Cumberland that are not mandatory?
The language isn't script to that. I mean, I think if it's a non-mandatory, you're going to have a lot of those issues. Because if people are voluntarily paying in and not regulated, I mean, I think they can voluntarily do what they want. And, it's like some of our neighborhoods, only about 30% are in the voluntary HOA and paying some general maintenance. I don't think it's going to impact them because it's essentially almost a neighborhood group as opposed to a state registered homeowners association. There's a lot more. I'm not gonna read all these, listen to the list. I think I've covered a lot of big ones. I'm also gonna send you guys some of the relevant resolutions they passed, because it's good to also know what they're planning on doing, where they're going, where their heads are at. And then the two local resolutions that were passed, there's a resolution from the Senate, for Commissioner Spalding will be retiring from state police, so the Senate passed a resolution recognizing him. And then the House passed a resolution recognizing New Palestine State Schools for their state victories. Out of our local surrounding ones, those are the nice ones. There's a bunch of other things that they're encouraging to be done and that needs to be set up that are less fun. I'll be in their fault.
Thank you, Ben. No old business, new business, introduction of ordinance 2026-02, board and commission.
You guys could have this ordinance in your packet. It's the ordinance that I give you guys the option, should you choose to move the Parks Board into council in form under state code. There's an option to go from Parks Board, non-elected officials to Parks Board of elected officials. So it gives you guys an option, and ask to research some different options and varieties, so you guys could do that as an option instead of advisory group or committee. And you guys could also appoint members with listing tabs to write things. The House bill passed, that changes a lot of the authorities of appointed officials. Most of those were county related, but there were 4 provisions. Obviously, there's kind of a trend right now of having the elected officials oversee most of the harder decisions. So as a part of that, this park boards getting longer exercise and doing without council. They're limited to spending 500,000 or 10% of their budget, whichever is kind of lesser of those. And you're also currently first board and some other boards don't serve fully at the pleasure of the council. That bill made it to where parks boards do fully serve at the pleasure of the council and can be removed without cost. In past legislation, parks boards and certain other boards, they have certain judiciary and other type of semi powers that others don't are protected through their term. If somebody were to be removed, they're entitled to a hearing in front of the council, a council representative, and you have to bring kind of charges with costs. So that's what that bill changed. So it's for introduction, it's relatively straightforward language. Bringing guys those few options, but also the context of what changed with that House bill in regards to some of those boards that had protection as appointees versus elected officials.
Do I have any questions for Bill on the ordinance direction? Then number 2, the AI ordinance 2026-03, acceptable use of AI policy.
Yes, so I worked with TAP on this bill, and it's been something I've wanted to do for a while to. We don't want to preclude people from using AI, but we want to make sure it's being used ethically and we're protecting sensitive data and those things. So TAP actually has some people that were early adopters of AI policies and worked with Christine and guy from Cincinnati office, his name's Illuminati Zach. And drafted the policy and then kind of went through, talked with individuals and looked at what we're using, made sure they were government safe and added them to current uses. Future uses would have to go through AI committee, which would make sure that there is safe government use. And part of that too is working with like IT and cyber, their evaluation of the software, make sure they have government certifications and we're not putting sensitive information into systems like HIPAA data and those things that we got to protect or things that are protected by NDAs and any of those type of things. So it's really saying we encourage the use of learning technology, using technology, but we need to protect the ethics here, make sure people are generating their own work, make sure they're protecting the taxpayers and how we're using time to.
I don't have such a question on the ordinance. I noticed we have also attached on readings this week. I don't know if you want to call it a suggested best action plan on AI with an 8-page document.
The action plan on that, that's the policy we worked on with that.
Okay, so this is the new work that's being done for somebody else.
Correct, yeah, this is what we put together with staff mostly drafted a lot of that, and we kind of filled in what was relevant. And that's basically the attachment that goes with this ordinance. So that's the policy that this ordinance would be adopting.
Thank you. Anybody else on the AI or listening to the question?
Not right now.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's the end of new business. Councilor comments.
How is the sanitary sewer project going on? That is scheduled, behind schedule, on schedule?
On schedule, on cost, gym's gonna be closed this month, assuming everything goes on track, so. I have already mentioned that sanitary board meeting, there's bets on what was not even as we decommissioned that in the bottom of the tanks. Mike and Cody have been working with staff, they're gonna be saving a lot of money because they're working with a new truck and our polymer system to reblast sludge and do sludge hauling with our equipment in-house, so. That's great, that's probably gonna be $80,000 cost saving off the project of using local resources and equipment. Yeah, we're on schedule to be completed this year, and we're actually just talking that we work with PFNS to reach out to you guys, sanitary board members, SRF, IFA and everything, be it ready for the opening of that new ribbon cutting ceremony, because IDM, IFA, SRF, and everyone was to be involved in that, just because it's exciting project, and I think some of our local representatives and stuff would like it.
Jim, if the weather permits, they plan on doing the crossover for 16. From the gym, we got April. They're playing.
Just, that's for sure the most exciting stuff. It's gonna cost us money right up to the 16th. Fixing things even this weekend.
Next one I had was the storm project I'm using,
Yeah.
same questions.
Same questions. I would say it's not been on schedule for a long time because citizens want to come in and do their utility relocates, point where Eagle Valley just more or less pleaded with them to have a contract to do non-cost themselves for citizens, which they agreed to. They plan on starting out into this month to be done in 5 weeks with that. So, should be, they hope to be started by now, but all the rain and snow melt has pushed up a little bit. But, they should be done. 8 weeks this year.
The, not that I'm terribly observant all the time, but I've noticed some yellow stripes going down 10, going across the road and then along the north side that I don't think were there before the big snow. Maybe that's something, another sewer project that may be kicking around. That's not our territory, I know, but
I don't
just
think
in
we
case,
have.
just in case their stuff floods into our stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that's us, but we'll ask.
I don't think it was either, but I just want to read my news, so.
There is asphalt paving equipment parked in the Washington Square, out the north side of Washington Square.
Oh, that's nice, that's a war zone down there.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, that's all, take yellow. Always.
Probably I can use that. Maybe.
Yeah.
So I knew that on the radar. They did get last session.
All right, next thing I have is housing developments that we have going on. Are any of them usually concerned on their timeframes or anything?
No, everything's moving forward, schedule. At this point, everything's really on the developer timetable. And that was a matter of them using applications for either their class or we're not looking to setting Wednesday or I think Cumberland North plans to breaking ground this year, making wood hopefully this spring. Next chapter year, and then the papers is going to be considering them to be done at their meeting later this month for the commercial area of the So, and then there's several people putting tires and stuff on the
A lot of.
Normally, winter's the more slower and the fall is busy. The fall was abnormally slow, but we're actually seeing right now like the
Summer busier. I know there's, in the north, there's a lot of back and forth on figuring out how to get the water size. They got figured out
I feel like they're on track, they don't really come in and if you ask them, they're gonna tell you things are slow. Rockbridge seems to be moving pretty well, so.
Well, actually, was over at the airport and they feel like they're now trying what they were selling. They felt like it was what they dealing with, but there's a whole slew of issues between other private parties.
I've had several people complain to me, and I've seen it on Facebook, that the entrance of Grand Corner, there's a sewer smell. I don't know if anybody, I know of a few people. Yeah, yeah, and some. Yeah, and some people are saying that the sewer line broke in Parkview. I have no idea if that's true.
We can investigate that tomorrow.
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, like lots of people. So there's something that's not right, and we have not taken that over yet, Grant's Corner. And I don't even know if it has anything to do with Grant's Corner, but.
Some of that sewer structure.
Yeah. Parking Village, well,
Parkview.
even Parkview.
Yeah, there's understanding testing done, that they're still on.
Okay.
I wonder if it's anything to do with Park View from back when they went under, or you had so much trouble.
Potentially, there's also any number of things, because it's relatively new, there's a chance they left the plug in somewhere or something too. Back up.
I have told people that, and I said I would follow up with it, but I told people,
Caitlin's left my memory now.
okay, and then I know some people complained about yard flooding, of course, this was before we had all these rains, but, I was just gonna say, before we take that over, somebody from the town and the engineer needs to walk that whole neighborhood, all sidewalks, there's some issues.
We didn't identify everything, we
Yeah.
had just walked the whole section one. And everything's been tested and handed over, so.
You know, I talked about Grace Corner, well, it has not officially been turned over to the town yet, so there, I walk there, so I see things.
My guess is the sewer smell is construction. Or construction. My on that subject. Storm. So.
Right around the same area. It's been doing like that. And kind of, there's not really a cul-de-sac, but it's kind of like a cul-de-sac. You turn in and take a right, go off way down, kind of like a cul-de-sac. Anyway. So, I don't know how you're gonna catch it, but. Anyway.
We'll get some cars over there if you want those home.
There's been parents in the parking lot that just migrate. Because there's little kids that live all around, including my granddaughter, and I haven't heard the end of it from her either. But it's also, you know, many of the other people around there have literally gone there and said, you need to get this kid to stop this and slow down. And I saw him do it too, you know, we were walking and I saw. I didn't see him make he just flew out of there, you know, and then really went fast down 700. Anyway. That's all I have.
Just a couple quickies. How are we coming along and we have the hearing over on the House of Representatives? Have you heard anything from that responded? What was our next step?
Yes, I've actually reached out to legal and they're there.
That I talked to you earlier in the week, I haven't been to see you over there. Around the house.
The building commissioner did the inspection and he's working on, the orders for unsafe building, that we're going to pass through.
Excellent. Okay, I appreciate it, thank you. All right, new council comment, no, good. Okay, all right, future agenda items, and 2 orders we heard tonight, coming back. We have any administrative conversation on moving, so that update, so. All right, when there has any further business, council tonight, with the motion to adjourn. All right.